Hey everybody, it's Adorak and welcome to my very first episode of Playback with Adorak. Now the purpose of this new segment is to kind of talk about all the tips and tricks that I find throughout the games I play, and even answer a lot of the questions that I get asked throughout the week. And for my first episode, we're going to focus on my favorite game, Disney Heroes Battle Mode. And the most common question that I get asked is, what is the best team out there? So if you stick around throughout this episode, I'll show you the best team currently, who I think the future best team is going to be, and I'll even give you a little insight to the teams that I play. So enough of this chatter. Let's get into this. Okay, so the grand old question, what is the best team in Disney Heroes Battle Mode? So instead of saying best team, we call it meta or most effective team available. Currently on server 4, we are cap level 100. We have every hero available. Darkwing Duck just came out this week. So based on what I see in Arena, Coliseum, and Guild Wars up in the Platinum and Challenge levels is usually a team that looks and starts something like this. You'll see Baymax, Quara, and Wally. They'll be the three main pieces of this puzzle. Then you'll usually see something like Tia and then probably Maleficent. This seems to be more common than most. Sometimes this gets changed up a little bit where you'll see Tia gone and maybe Woody thrown in there, but it's some compilation of this. And why is this so effective? Well, the reason it's effective is Baymax starts it with a group-wide shield. Quara's damage is outrageous, so she does serious damage in a short amount of time. She does a ton of damage at the initiation of the fight, and then as soon as she ramps up with just a few seconds in the fight, she can take down a whole team. Wally is one of the best crowd control of the game with a freeze, a knockback, and he does a ton of damage, boosted power. Maleficent is just another crowd control. She has a great root. It roots the whole team. She does a good amount of damage from her other abilities. I like Woody in this group because Woody's Deputize helps ramp up Quara quicker. So again, in arena matches, you tend to see this team win faster. So it gives the other team no chance to counter. And that's really why this is the most effective team. It's very hard to counter. It's really strong once you get up there on these guys and levels. And it definitely right now is the best team you can play with. Okay, so let's take a look and see how this team plays out. Now, currently I have it selected on Campaign 14, and this would be the highest elite match. I'm going to leave the team we have here now, and let's just see how they fight. So right at the start of the fight, you're going to see both Baymax and Quara come out with lead damage because they have an initial attack. Baymax throws up a shield. Quara's actually running with the shield disc, so she gets a double shield. And immediately, you see how quick and how fast she puts out damage. And that's mainly because Woody's favorite deputy skill just ramps her up. Meanwhile, while all that's going on, you see crowd control coming in from Wally with the group freeze. You'll see Maleficent do her dragon attack, and then when she even gets a moment, if they're not dead, she'll root whatever target she can see at that point, which in that case was Mr. Incredible. But you can see how fast they kill. And this works really well in Arena because usually this will ramp up quickly. So, you only have a few seconds to win that fight. But in campaigns or in City Watch, this also works really good, especially if you put Woody in the group, because you're going to get the heal to sustain over the course of multiple fights. But at the same time, I mean, it's just devastating. It will rip through team after team. This definitely right now is the best team to play with. However, I do see it changing a little bit, and we'll talk about that next. All right, so now we know what the best meta is currently. What's the new meta going to be? What are we going to start to see, and how's it going to change? Well, I think it's going to change dramatically. With some of the new heroes that just recently released, I think it changes the game. And if you haven't paid attention, two of the biggest heroes that just came out pre-Darkwing Duck were Elsa and Olaf, and a lot of people love these heroes. Me personally, I also love these heroes. They counter and work off each other so well, with Olaf being a tank hero that freezes, comes back to life, and Elsa doing significant damage to frozen targets. These two work really well together, and this just screams freeze team. I think you're going to see a lot of freeze teams come out. I think you're going to see variations of a whole bunch of characters in this game that do freezing abilities. But here's what I think should work and what I think is going to work. And this mainly focuses on the discs that come with these heroes. So this team I'm about to show you is heavily dependent upon having the discs that correspond with this. So let me show you the heroes first, and I'll tell you the discs that you need to get. So definitely Olaf, Elsa. If you watched my previous videos, I said one of the up-and-coming heroes that you're going to see is Miguel. I think he makes His debut now, he's already been popping up a lot on some teams, but he'll work really well on this team. I think then you see Moana come back. She was very strong. A few patches ago, and then she kind of disappeared. And some people still play her, but she's extremely strong. We just forgot about her. I think she makes her presence in this group. And then I think an old timer comes back. I think we see Frozone come back. Frozone was really strong when the game came out. People kind of just forgot about him with all the new heroes. And I think personally, this is not the team you're going to see everywhere. This is just going around the fact that I think you're going to see a freeze meta come out. You're going to see a mixture of heroes, and they're going to be focusing heavily on freezing targets. I think that these five are going to make the best freeze team. And let me explain why. If you look at some of the discs that just came out, and again, this is disc heavy. You have to have the discs. I currently do not have all the discs. They just released, and I'm working on them. But we want to look at Olaf and Moana's disc, and I won't go over all of it. You can go read it on your own. But their combo disc, when you get Olaf's disc from Moana, it does more damage to frozen targets, which totally influences this whole comp. We're going to have a lot of freeze here, 3 different ways to freeze a target, and now we're going to output even more damage on those frozen targets. We're actually going to have a 4th way to freeze. So if you also look at Elsa and Frozone's disc, so that combination increases the length of time targets are frozen. So now everybody freezes even longer. So crowd control is going to be unreal. So once these freezes go off, which again, you have so many ways to freeze a target, it's going to last longer now because of that disc combo. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is Miguel's disc with Elsa. This is your 4th freeze. Miguel, one of his skills is flatten, where when he uses the skill, it will stun all the targets that have notes on them. Well, now it freezes targets that have notes on them. So again, adding a 4th freeze. So right now you have 4 different targets that can freeze. They all benefit off each other. You get amazing support from Miguel. You have Olaf as your tank, a ton of damage coming in from Moana, and even Frozone and Elsa, because Frozone does a ton of damage when targets are frozen. It does a tick over time, which is just dramatic, which people again forget about. This comp here is going to be amazing. But again, you're going to have to build it up. You will have to get the discs for this to work. I don't think it's going to work great without the discs because that's the whole point. But I'll show you what it will do. Again, my team is nothing exciting. They're all about P3s, P4s. They're sitting 95 or higher level. Most of their skills are almost maxed out, or at least to the level they are currently. But let me show you what it looks like. Right now, I think I'm fighting campaign 14, match number 1. And you can see I only have a 2-star Olaf here. But take a look and see how these guys work. So immediately coming out, you're going to start to see freezes because there's so many ways to freeze. And I'm missing the disc from Miguel, so I don't even get that freeze. So I'm working on the 3. Olaf, obviously, if he dies, he comes back to life. So he plays a great frontliner because he's almost unkillable. And he's only a 2-star P3, and he's just completely defending the rest of his team. The weakest target right now would be Frozone, just because he doesn't really have the health, but even so, you still see him moving. And look at the freezing is just, there's a group freeze. There's another freeze. And then Elsa is just, enjoying the fact that everybody's frozen because she's doing a ton of damage. Now, she took a little hit there and died, but even at this group, now this is the first level of campaign 14, the highest campaign out. These guys are sitting at 72,000 damage, which is absolutely nothing compared to what damage is out there. I mean, everybody's really sitting over 100 right now, most of their main team. So they're significantly set back, and they were able to handle that. So again, this is only my 2 cents. You'll see some other heroes pop up. There's a lot of talk right now on Shank. She's really good. I think you might see her pop in some of these groups. But just in my opinion, I think the freeze team is going to be the new meta. It's going to be some compilation or variance to what I've done here. And this is just my 2 cents. This is the freeze team you want. Okay, so now that we know what the common meta is that you see currently and what I think the new meta is going to switch to, at least some type of variance of that, let me show you some of the teams I use. Now, I use a whole barrage of different teams, and I experiment all the time just because I like doing videos. I like to look into other heroes and other comps, and I like to go against the grain sometimes. But I do definitely play a similar combination of the current meta. So a lot of times, or at least what I've been doing lately, is I've been putting Baymax, Quara, Wally, and then I've been making a little adjustment here. I'll throw Woody in, but then I'll add in Olaf. And I do this because I've been trying to work in the freeze a little bit and free up some heroes for the other group. So this is kind of my play on the current meta. This tends to work a lot. I currently sit plat 1 in my Coliseum. I tend to win pretty well in Guild Wars. And mostly I'm just trying to look to go against the grain a little bit. So I kind of just threw out Maleficent, who I used to play, which you saw in the first part of the segment, and I threw in Olaf in this group. And this, again, this will play very similar. Here, I'll show you a quick fight of this. It's going to work just like it did before, except we're going to get a little more freeze, a little, more front heavy. So we have some stronger tanks up front. Again, it took me a little bit because Olaf still isn't quite where I want him to be super competitive. But being that I threw him into a team like this, he still sits in the, we're still sitting at the 96,000. So I can easily take down, 100, 107,000 groups, 110 because of the freeze and some of the combinations. I get the double freeze, obviously, with Wally also being on the team. I still get the speed boost that I like with the deputy ability coming from Woody to Quara, so I get all the attack I wanted, and of course I have the shields. So this tends to work. I got a little messy there, took a little hit. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that, I am playing with an Olaf that's 2-star in P3. So the higher he gets up, the more that will work. But it does work. Most people can't counter it as well because they're always prepared for what the most common meta is. So it tends to win some fights by throwing in that little difference in there. All right, now for my second team, or one of the more common teams I play, I use this as a team to counter a lot of the Zergs that are still out there. It's pretty much a heavy damage, just get rid of supporting, and just go after any of the Zerg teams I might still find, because there's still people running them, and they could be devastating if you're not prepared for them. So here's what I do. I throw in Sully and Ralph. Ralph is a great counter to Zerg because of his constant silence. Then I'll put in the Mike, because Mike and Sully, it's one of the older group combos that you'll see in some of my old videos. I love those two. Again, I try to play some of the heroes that are forgotten. I'll counter also with the Zerg, and the one difference I'll make is I'll throw Calhoun into this group, and that gives me that shield that will help Zerg stay alive. I don't get the ramp up like I would if I had Woody there, where I'll get the initial extra energy and kind of get that attack faster. But this will work really well because if I'm going against another Zerg team, the Ralph will keep him silenced out. The shields keep me alive longer, and normally what will happen is my Zerg will attack faster and before theirs will, allowing me to beat those teams. This works really good on teams that are heavy tank teams. So teams that you see like 2, 3 tanks, this will work because Zerg will rip through them. He has enough protection to do it. Again, I'll show you a little breakdown of how this works. Again, I'm just fighting a campaign fight, but you get the idea. So you get the shield out the gate from Calhoun. We're working off the whole Scream idea. So you get, the increased crit, you get the stuns, a lot of the old stuff you could see in my old videos. Again, this is just an old comp team that still works really well because, again, everybody's trying to play with all the new heroes. They forget about these old ones. Well, they're so strong when put together. So as you can see, works really well. And that works great in like an arena team because it's fast. So it will kill a lot of teams out there in arena. So another little one that I like to play with that's a little different than the rest. All right, so now for my third team. Now, mind you, just so you know, I'm not using the same heroes across these teams. So these teams could work if you want to build a Coliseum team or a Guild War team. For my third team currently, and this is only because I do not have some of the heroes I want leveled up. But I've been playing a lot with Jack Sparrow up front. He is really strong, another forgotten hero. If you still have him, he works great. There's some new discs out there for him. I usually will bring him on the team. I brought back Buzz, another hero people forgot. He's got an amazing gravity ball that takes somebody completely out of the fight. So he works really well. I'll put those two together. Then you'll see me throw in Tia in this group. She works really well alongside Jack Sparrow. And then I kind of mix it up here. I get a little creative. Sometimes I do Eve and Frozone. Because I'll get the freeze from Frozone and Eve will, bank off that. Sometimes I just take Eve's support damage and I'll put her in with someone like Moana. And if I think that I'm going to have trouble where I need to counter like a Wally or another group of freeze people, I'll take, her out and I'll put in Kevin because Kevin's going to have the cleanse. But it's usually a combination of this. This particular group you see right here, I play more often than not because Kevin's heal and his cleanse is really strong. It's always been strong. And again, gets overshadowed a little bit with all the new heroes out. But this little comp works well. I'll show you how it fights here. Again, it doesn't sit very high, but as my third team, this throws a wrench in it. When you're going up against this, you don't really know how to counter it. So in many cases, especially in Guild War, I'll end up surviving or winning a match that it takes somebody now 2 or 3 times to beat me because they just don't know how to counter this team. They're not prepared for it. It's something you don't see all the time. And that's really the trick when you're playing in Colosseums or when you're playing in Guild Wars. You need to show different hands. You can't show the same hand every time because if everybody's doing the same thing, eventually we figure out the counters for it and it's simple to beat you. But when you start throwing in a mix mosh of heroes and you change it up, it makes it really hard to counter that or beat that. And you can see this team works actually really well. They're making it through again. This is whatever. This is like one of the high campaign 14s, but just so you can see. But yeah, that would be another group that I play with. So with those 3 groups, those are the common groups you'll see me play now. That obviously changes a lot, but those are the 3 that I use the most often. I'm definitely going to start building in that freeze team as soon as I can get it over like 85 or 90. You'll start to see that freeze team supplement probably out this team or one of the other ones in some way. But I hope that helps. That's my first episode of Playback with Adorak, and I hope this gives you some ideas and some ways that you could be building your teams and give you some insight to what we're playing with at some of the higher levels. Don't forget my new tag @Adorak. Make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Twitter @AngryAdo, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Thanks.